The Chicago Bears just signed Tony Fields II out of the UFL after an all-UFL season where he led the league in tackles. The bigger question is going to be, is this just about depth, or is the Chicago Bears still searching for something that they feel is missing on this roster? And speaking of answers, there are a couple of players that the Bears are turning to for answers to their pass rush, namely Austin Booker. And surprisingly enough, Ben Johnson also talks about the motivated Dayo Odeyingbo and what he could bring to this team. Plus, we're going to talk about three statistical areas the Chicago Bears need to improve the most in 2026. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers by the start of the 2026 season, and if we only do that with the help of you guys, about 44% of you guys who subscribe to who watch the channel every single day have not yet hit that subscribe button. It's completely and absolutely free to subscribe to the channel. It costs you absolutely nothing. You're here watching anyway. Stop lurking and be a part of the family. Actually hit that subscribe button. With that said, though, we're going to go ahead and get into the topics for today, man. This is going to be a fun episode. I don't know about y'all, but I continue to be just more and more and more excited about what this team could be coming into this season. But one of those things that the questions that the Bears have dealt with a lot of injuries over the last couple of seasons, right? Especially last year, we were riddled with injuries. And the Chicago Bears have signed Tony Fields II from the UFL. This is probably more of a depth move that does have some upside, but the Bears linebacker room is pretty crowded. So the question becomes about, is there more concern around some of the injuries with this Bears team than maybe what we are realizing? And maybe that's what you can look at. Tony Fields II finished second in the UFL in tackles with 77 tackles. He also added 5 tackles for a loss, 1 sack, and he was all UFL last season as well. This is a guy that was a former 5th-round pick that has NFL experience as well, right? He played mostly in special teams in Cleveland, which I do think matters for position battles and stuff like that. But the Bears linebacker room is already pretty deep. You have Devin Bush and Keyshaun Elliott, who you added this offseason, along with bringing back Jack Sanborn, right? Then, of course, you still got TJ Edwards, and you re-signed DeMarco Jackson. So the question becomes about, is this just purely competition, or does Tony Fields actually have a pathway into the roster? And I'll say this, right? This is the type of move that good teams usually make, right? You create competition at the bottom of the roster, and you just make it feel a little bit more special. Like, competition brings the best out of players, right? And this is a guy that is very motivated as well. I don't want to overlook Tony Fields II and him coming in with his own motivation, because this is a guy that just played in the UFL and had a great season. He's trying to make his way back to the NFL, and now he has a chance to do that with the Chicago Bears. Now, my hope is, and this is no knock on Tony Fields at all, but my hope is that guys like Keyshaun Elliott, of course, who we just drafted, and guys like Jack Sanborn, who we just brought back, and DeMarco Jackson, that they make this not even really much of a position battle. When you look at Tony Fields and what he did in the NFL, right, over the course of his 4 seasons in the NFL, where he played 45 total games, he had 88 tackles, 48 of those being solo, with no sacks, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, and an interception. That's what he did over his 4 years in the NFL, where, again, he did play mostly special teams with the Cleveland Browns. So it's not like he was out there on a lot of the defensive snaps and positions. I think overall this is just a depth move in training camp that teams usually do make to bring in a little bit more competition in a training camp. I think that's really all that there is to this, and it's not really much. But, for what it's worth, like, I mean, listen, this guy was a former 5th-round pick. He still is a fairly young player as well. Not like he's over the hill or anything like that. Still in his 20s, so there still is a path for him to try to get back to the NFL. And even if he does end up being a special teams contributor, I've talked about before on this channel, having all facets of the game deep is the importance of this one. And I think that's what you really like to look at, is that it's all about adding competition, adding depth to this team. And when you get to the point of breeding in that competition in your team, you just got to do it and find the way that you can do it overall. So, we cover the news here. We cover everything that goes on with the Bears. So I'd be remiss if I did not cover that and talk about it. But hey, the Bears have made a new linebacker signing, and we'll just see what that linebacker ends up bringing to the Chicago Bears because he does have some problems. I do want to flip this, though, and look at two players that Ben Johnson has basically put pressure on this season on that defensive line. One is Austin Booker, which we've talked a lot about. We're going to talk a little bit more about. And the other is Dayo Odeyingbo. And I know that's something that a lot of Bears fans, rightfully so, roll their eyes. Their eyes glaze over anytime you bring in Dayo Odeyingbo, even though he's motivated. But, we'll see what happens with that one. But, what this team did this offseason in not adding a notable edge rusher, it put more highlight on what the Bears are going to try to do with their edge rusher this year, namely Austin Booker, right? Austin Booker is the guy that if you're talking about internal development and growth, he's the guy that you look at the edge position that you say, all right, like based off what the flashes that you showed last year in preseason and in the regular season when you did get back healthy, how much of that can we look at and can we bet on you to actually take that stuff a step further, right? And Austin Booker is a guy that, when the Bears drafted him, we knew he was going to take a little bit of development time. 6'6", 245 pounds. Last year had 4.5 sacks, one forced fumble as well. He had 35 total tackles. That's in 10 games played, right? Now, if you look at that and extrapolate that over a full 17 games season, you're looking at double-digit sacks from Austin Booker, basically, right? Or close to it at 9.5. And so, compared with the fact that a lot of the games that he did play, he was still making a recovery for injury, we all know the expectations that are on Austin Booker. By the Bears deciding to not invest heavily in their defensive line this offseason, it has put a big set of eyes and spotlight on what Austin Booker can do this year. And the Bears are right to bet on that because if he does show things like throwing him out to the fire, I do expect him to be the starting edge opposite Montez Sweat. Throwing him out to the fire, you now are going to give him an opportunity to sink or swim. This is basically Austin Booker's opportunity to show you, I can be a starting edge for you. You don't have to spend money about going out there and getting a big time edge because I'm about to make that step for you guys next season. And hopefully he does live up to that, right? Like, and that's no knock on him. I think Austin Booker, the technique is there. I think he has that pit bull mentality, the dog mentality is there. This is a guy that wants to be great. I have no doubts that Austin Booker wants to be great on this team. And also, the Bears also saying that they're going to play Shamar Turner more at edge, who Shamar Turner is recovering from his ACL injury as well. And so they're betting on the internal development of Austin Booker and Shamar Turner heavily at that edge position, right? And if you can do that, that's great. There's pressure on these guys coming into 2006. Booker's pressure is to show you can be consistent and that the flashes that we saw from you last year is something that we can now bet on as development. Shamar Turner is like, hey, you were a young rookie last year. You lost most of your rookie season last year due to an ACL injury. Now show us that you're somebody that we can continue to invest in. And that's what it is, right? There's pressure on these guys to play in 2026 and to put up the stats, to put up the performance that the Bears can then look at and say, we got us something in this. We're going to continue to work on it. We're going to continue to develop these guys, and we feel like they're worth that. But then also there's another guy that was signed in the free agency of 2025 in Dayo Odeyingbo, who, there's some pressure on. Pro Football Network said this in regards to Dayo Odeyingbo. Dayo signed a big money contract with the Chicago Bears in 2005 offseason, but he had just 10 pressures and 1 sack in 8 games last year. He returns to the team coming off an injury, and he needs to stay healthy and return to his 2023 form in which he had 8 sacks. The Bears will save $15 million by releasing him next offseason, which feels like a foregone conclusion if he doesn't bounce back. This would be different if Dayo was returning from an Achilles tear, but he looked good before the injury. He didn't look good before the injury. 1 sack, 4 QB hits in 8 games is not what we pay him, and not what we're paying him $20 million to get done with. It's just the reality of it. He's not living up to it. Now, Ben Johnson has also talked publicly about Dayo Odeyingbo. I think for one of the first times we've seen him really talk publicly in regards to it, and he said this is really a bonus for us. We weren't quite sure when we started the offseason program that we would get him for any length of time. But the fact that he's on the field, he wants to be out there, is just another step forward in terms of him gaining confidence again and how he's moving. He's done a great job of being attentive in meetings. And so now I know he was really itching to get back out there with his teammates. So it's a step in the right direction for sure. The fact is that I'm not even I think that Dayo's going to be cut regardless, right? Much like we said last year coming into the season, how healthy can Jaquan Brisker be? And that's going to help determine if he gets his contract. He played all 17 games and he didn't get a contract. Dayo and the money that he's going to save the Chicago Bears is real. But for a player in Dayo that got his big money contract, that a team was willing to bet on him to come in that needed an edge, and they paid him like an edge that they were going to believe in. The fact is that that he completely failed to live up to even the most modest of expectations that you had for Dayo Odeyingbo. And I know the whole motivated thing on social media is taking a turn, and rightfully so, because it's funny, because it's like, what are we doing here, bro? But I will say this. The Bears have already talked about moving Dayo more to the interior of the defensive line. That's where Dayo has been a better pass rusher. He was better in run stopping on the outside, better as a pass rusher on the inside. So now, with the growth of Austin Booker, with Shamar Turner coming in, hopefully a healthy Grady Jarrett, and Dayo Odeyingbo moving more to his more natural position that puts him as a better pass rusher, if those things all come together for the Bears, of course, you're hoping that this pass rush is going to be in a much better position for the Chicago Bears team, to where we're actually building correctly, moving towards a more confident and a more consistent pass rush. That's what we need, right? So, I know it's easy to make fun of Dayo Odeyingbo. I'm going to do it. I'm going to continue to do it until he proves me otherwise. But, this is one of the riskiest bets that the Bears have made this offseason, is betting on internal development and better health, for one of the most important things that you need on your team if you want to be a successful team, and that is the pass rush. That is the reality of it, the pass rush. If you want this pass rush if you want to be able to be a team that has a legitimate chance of making the NFC Championship, you have to be a better pass rushing team. And so the Bears have taken the more risky spot. And not to say that there wouldn't be risk other ways. Like, even if you would have traded for some of the big name contracts, there's a risk then in your roster building and stuff like that. But like, this is the thing that almost everybody, even the most kind of diehard Bears fans that get blinded and think that this team is going to be a Super Bowl contender, which great if it can be, like, even they are concerned about the pass rush. And that's just what it comes down to. Like, yes, we didn't have health in the pass rush. And that's a reality of it. Grady Jarrett was not healthy for the entirety of the year. We had injuries all up and down the defense as well that do affect the pass rush. But what you do with your secondary, because of how important it is in Dennis Allen's system, that we just didn't have the health and we didn't have the fluidity and flexibility that Dennis Allen originally planned for us to have in the secondary, which then affected also everything else. So, it's hopefully this is a season with much better health, much better performance, and hopefully some of these guys do wow. Like, I hope that Javon Dexter takes another step. I hope that Austin Booker has a double-digit sack season and looks like the monster that we think that he can be. Hope that Shamar Turner can prove something. Hell, hope Ruben Hippolyte, Keyshaun Elliott, and other guys also show something from that linebacker position where they also help the defensive line out some. Everything it goes hand in hand, right? The pass rush is directly tied to the pass coverage. That is what it is. It's a symbiotic relationship between the two. Some people say, well, hell, if you had better coverages in your corners, your defensive line is going to get more sacks. And some can say if you got more consistent pressure with your defensive line, your corners wouldn't have to guard as long, and then your corners would be better, right? So it's a symbiotic relationship. It goes hand in hand, and we have to have a better balance of that heading into the season. I think Dennis Allen and the defensive coaches here, they understand, they get that. Until the Bears can get to that spot, though, it's going to leave a lot to be desired for, and it's going to leave a lot of concern from Bears fans of if we have enough. And I can't knock any Bears fans that ask that question. Do we really have enough? And, from Javon Dexter's comments to Dennis Allen's comments to everybody, I think that the Bears internally do feel like they have enough here to get it done, but you got to prove it. What did I say before? Show and prove season for a lot of people on this Bears team. It's show and prove for Jalen Johnson. It's show and prove for Kyler Gordon, right? Can they stay healthy? It's definitely show and prove for Tyreek Stevenson. And a lot of show and prove on their defensive line, too. Montez Sweat. Ben Johnson said last season that he believes that Montez Sweat had his best season, right? And I don't know if statistically if it backs that up, but like he said that he feels that Montez Sweat had his best season. And so the confidence in it is because this coaching staff, and I can't knock them for one of the things that I think we also have talked about as a positive of this coaching staff. They really do believe in their players here, and they are going to try to empower those players to be able to get what they need out of them. But at some point, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in what you see on the football field, and until we actually see it, it's going to be a big question there. In that quote that I talked about with Ben Johnson said this about Montez Sweat. This was a guy that played at a very high level. I talked to him yesterday about, hey, I would argue it was the best year of his career. Whether that showed up statistically or not, that's debatable. But his ability to play the pass, I thought he did a really nice job, and hopefully it's something we can piggyback on and carry the momentum into this year. And so there's that. And I think this, like, the one thing that we've also heard consistently is that this defensive line is hearing all the talk about how good they're not, right? And if that motivates them as well, great. Take that, ride with that, and let that motivate you, right? And so, a quote from Montez Sweat: "You hear the chatter. It is what it is. Everybody has an opinion. We just have to go out there and do what we've got to do." And that is the motive of this defensive line coming into the season. Go out there and do what you have to do. And what do you have to do? You got to put quarterbacks' faces in the dirt. You got to put pressure on quarterbacks. You got to make them feel uncomfortable. You got to put pressure on the run game, which leads us to our next topic. I want to talk about 3 statistical areas where the Chicago Bears need to improve in the most if they truly want to be this Super Bowl contender this upcoming season. I think it's some key areas, right? 1, Caleb Williams' completion percentage. We all know that. It's the thing that's been talked about the most this offseason. Ben Johnson's going to make a lot of it as well, right? He completed 62.5% of his passes as a rookie. That number dropped in his second year to 58%, right? Which dropped, it's there. He fell below 60%. That's unacceptable. I get it. The statistical output that he had was great, right? When you look at the yards, the passes, the low interceptions, all that was great. But between Caleb Williams missing the gimmies and the wide receivers dropping the passes, you got to get that together. This is a year where Caleb Williams, again, as Bobby pointed out, between 62 and 65-ish%. Live in that window. If you can get in that window, Caleb Williams is going to have an amazing statistical year, and it shows the improvement that we need from Caleb Williams, that he's making those steps in the right direction. He has to get over 60%. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. If this team wants to be an elite offense, which I think they have the capability of doing, we need higher than a 60% completion percentage. That's just it, right? All the advanced passing stats look really good for Caleb Williams, and that's great, right? That shows the value and how he can overcome even some of the things that the shortcomings there. The Bears registered 29 drops in 2025, according to Pro Football Reference, but Williams was simply off the mark as well in 2026. Clean that up, and we're going to get that tightened up a lot. So, we got to get that in 2026. We got to get those tightened up, and if the Bears can do that, I think things are going to be really good for them. Secondly, rushing yards allowed per game. I just want to go over this, right? Again, we're talking about the Bears in a different category now. We're not just talking about being a okay team. We're talking about measuring yourself against some of the best teams in the NFL. When you look at some of the Super Bowl champions and where they ranked in rushing yards allowed per game, the Seahawks, they allowed 93 yards per game. They were 3rd in the NFL last year. The Eagles, they were 4th in the NFL in 2024, where they only allowed 101 rushing yards per game. The Chiefs in 2003, they were 16th. They allowed 113 rushing yards per game. The Chiefs again in 2022, they allowed 107 rushing yards per game, where they were 8th at. And then 2021, the Rams were 5th in rushing yards allowed per game, and they allowed 95 rushing yards per game. Here's the thing. Here's the trend in regards to this one, right? You got to be a better rushing defense. You cannot allow the running attack to completely kill you like the Bears have done. How many drives did we see last year with the Chicago Bears? It ended up playing 2 really solid downs, but when they needed that stop on 3rd down, they allowed a huge rushing amount of rushing yards. The Bears have to tighten that rushing attack up. If they do not tighten that rushing attack up, things are going to be ugly for this Bears team this year. So you have to get that done. This is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to be a better rushing team. We heard getting all the takeaways, all that type of stuff was great, but this is what we talk about when we talk about functional defense. The takeaways are good, but you need more functional defense to be there. The Bears cannot allow over 130 rushing yards per game like they did in 2025. They can't allow that in 2026 if they want to make that next step as a team. That's just period, point blank. They can't allow it. Then you look at the last stat. Touchdown passes allowed. The Chicago Bears were 4th most passing touchdowns allowed in 2025, despite, leading the league in interceptions. So that's, again, functional defense, right? The Bears allowed a opposing passing rating of 91.4. So teams were able to throw, and they were able to complete that. So you have to get that together. On top of the rushing defense, your passing defense has to be much better when it comes down to it. And so I think that's the realistic path for this team. You cannot allow as many touchdown passes as what you allowed last year, and that comes down to the secondary being healthy. If the secondary is more healthy, that's going to go down. The safeties and the improvement that we've made there, that's going to go a large way for this team as well. But these are the things that the Bears need to elevate. If they really want to become that team that's looked at as a championship level and caliber team, You cannot allow as many rushing yards. You can't allow as many touchdown passes as what you allowed. You have to be a better functional defense. You become a better functional defense, the wins are going to start stacking up for you. You're going to be right in that upper echelon of teams in the NFL, right where you want to be. You just got to get that done. And we'll see if the Bears can do that. So let me know what you guys think on that down below. Where do you want to see the Chicago Bears improve at the most? What do you think about Austin Booker, Shamar Turner, Dayo Odeyingbo being some of the more bigger spots for internal development and improvement for this team, hoping that we're going to be a much better pass rush? Let me know what you guys think on that down below, and who has the biggest prove-it season for you coming up for the Bears as well. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Shy Bear Central on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.